Tensions between Washington and Caracas have continued to rise as the White House intensifies its campaign against suspected Venezuelan drug smuggling boats. The administration describes the effort as a necessary response to criminal networks that feed narcotics into the United States, but critics warn that the strategy is drifting into an undeclared conflict. President Donald Trump has reinforced that pressure with a series of public warnings directed at Nicolás Maduro, signaling that all options remain available. Asked how far he was prepared to go to remove Maduro from power, he responded with deliberate ambiguity, offering only the assertion that his days are numbered. When pressed on whether he could rule out a full American ground invasion of Venezuela, he said he would not rule in or out any action and added that he simply does not talk about specific operational possibilities. That refusal to outline limits has fueled debate in Washington, where lawmakers are increasingly concerned that the campaign could broaden into military escalation without the constitutional process required for initiating war. Among those voicing the strongest objections is Senator Rand Paul, who has repeatedly emphasized that any military action beyond immediate self-defense requires authorization from Congress. As Paul put it, "I kind of like to obey this thing called the Constitution." He argued that the president does not have the authority to unilaterally take the country into war, and that Venezuela, however troubled, has not attacked the United States. Any conflict undertaken without congressional approval, he said, would be both unconstitutional and unnecessary. The senator argued that history is filled with presidents who have acted without proper authorization, citing examples across decades, but insisted that such precedents do not justify repeating the same choices. In his words, 10 wrongs don't make a right. He noted that the framers of the Constitution were clear and unanimous. The power to declare war rests exclusively with Congress. Paul also expressed concern that some within the administration may be pushing for a more aggressive approach than the president himself originally supported. He said he had admired Trump's past opposition to regime change conflicts and hoped those instincts would prevail, but he feared that certain advisors could steer the United States toward a war of choice rather than necessity. The broader controversy intensified after a US strike on September 2nd destroyed a small vessel off the Venezuelan coast. The administration described the target as a drug smuggling boat, but critics questioned whether the people aboard were armed, whether the vessel posed a threat, and whether the United States had adhered to the laws of armed conflict. The initial missile strike destroyed the boat, leaving debris scattered across the water. Moments later, a second strike was ordered. The existence of this second strike has become a focal point of congressional scrutiny, particularly because 2 individuals were reportedly visible clinging to wreckage before the missile hit. President Trump has faced persistent questions about whether he would authorize the release of full video footage from that operation. When asked, he insisted reporters had misquoted him, reacting sharply as he denied making any earlier commitment to release the video. He then added that whatever the Secretary of Defense decided on the matter was acceptable to him. Critics argue that the footage should be released to clarify what happened during and after the initial strike, especially given concerns about whether survivors were intentionally targeted. Senator Paul has been unequivocal in his view that the video should be made public. He said that if Americans saw images of individuals clinging to floating debris in the aftermath of the strike, sympathy would not rest with the officials who ordered the action. He argued that it is clearly illegal under US military law to target shipwrecked individuals, and that the United States has long prided itself on distinguishing between combatants and non-combatants, even in difficult circumstances. Paul explained that members of his own staff with military experience were concerned that such actions, if confirmed, would violate both domestic military codes and international war conventions. He said that, "We don't shoot people, we don't shoot pilots that are descending by parachute. If we blow up a boat and there are survivors, we don't shoot those people." The senator emphasized that the distance from which missiles are fired does not change the moral or legal obligations of the United States. Whether a pilot pulls a trigger at close range or a missile is launched from thousands of miles away, the rules of war remain the same. He further questioned whether suspected smugglers traveling in small motorboats, often thousands of miles from US shores, could reasonably be classified as participants in an armed conflict. In his view, the administration has blurred the line between crime control and warfare, risking deadly errors in cases where evidence of criminal activity has not been publicly presented. Paul also highlighted the statistical reality that even traditional interdiction operations carry uncertainty. Before the adoption of the current missile strike policy, he noted that 1 in 4 vessels boarded by US personnel during anti-drug operations contained no narcotics at all. Under the new approach, those mistakes could become fatal rather than correctable. He warned that accepting a potential error rate of 25% with lethal consequences would be unconscionable, and that the United States should not move toward a policy of presuming guilt and using deadly force before establishing facts. Supporters of the administration argue that the campaign is part of a broader effort to disrupt the drug trade that has devastated American communities. They point to the deadly toll of narcotics trafficking and view the maritime operations as a necessary deterrent against smugglers who often operate with impunity. Military leaders involved in the campaign have told lawmakers that legal advisors were consulted at every stage of the September 2nd operation and that the strike fell within established guidelines. Those assurances, however, have not quelled concerns among those who question the underlying rationale of treating suspected smugglers as enemy combatants. Some lawmakers who attended briefings on the strike say they were troubled by what they heard, particularly the suggestion that survivors were deliberately targeted after the initial explosion. Others appear satisfied with the explanations provided and argue that the military acted appropriately under the circumstances. The debate has widened into a broader argument about accountability, oversight, and the proper use of American military power, especially in operations conducted far from declared battlefields. The political and legal fighting in Washington unfolds against the backdrop of a broader regional build-up. The United States has deployed a significant naval presence to the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, with vessels equipped for surveillance, interdiction, and strike missions. While officials describe these deployments as defensive and focused on counter-narcotics operations, the scale of the build-up has prompted questions about long-term objectives and whether the administration is laying the groundwork for deeper involvement inside Venezuela. Inside Venezuela, Maduro's government has condemned the operations as acts of aggression and has placed its military on heightened alert. Venezuelan leaders accuse Washington of seeking to provoke a confrontation as part of a broader strategy to undermine the regime. Regional allies of Venezuela have echoed concerns about escalating US activity, while opponents of Maduro have expressed mixed views, some welcoming the pressure as a potential catalyst for political change, others fearful that military escalation could destabilize the region even further. Human rights organizations have also entered the debate, warning that the expanding campaign risks violating international humanitarian law. They argue that drug trafficking, serious as it is, does not in itself transform a situation into an armed conflict. Without a recognized battlefield or active hostilities, they say, the use of lethal military force must be limited to situations where imminent threats exist, not generalized suspicions about criminal behavior. Several legal experts have cautioned that broadening the definition of lawful targets to include suspected smugglers could set a dangerous precedent that undermines the distinction between crime and war. In Washington, the constitutional debate remains central. Critics argue that while the executive branch can act swiftly in emergencies, sustained military campaigns require congressional oversight to ensure accountability. The founders established that structure to prevent unilateral decisions that could lead to costly and avoidable conflicts. As Senator Paul has emphasized, the framers believed that vesting the war-making power in the legislature would make wars less likely and ensure that the public, through its representatives, had a voice in decisions of such gravity. Paul also warned that permitting presidents to repeatedly bypass the constitutional process weakens democratic norms and concentrates dangerous power in the executive branch. Although he acknowledged that past presidents have engaged in unauthorized military actions, he described these episodes as deviations from, not interpretations of, constitutional intent. His concern is that normalization of such deviations risks turning exceptional actions into permanent precedents. Despite the warnings, the administration continues to frame its actions as part of a campaign to disrupt dangerous criminal networks. Supporters argue that the president is fulfilling his duty to protect the United States from narcotics flows that contribute to addiction, violence, and instability. Opponents counter that the mission remains ill-defined, legally questionable, and susceptible to mission creep in a volatile region. As the debate continues, one unresolved question looms: whether the United States will release the full video of the September 2nd operation. Supporters of transparency argue that doing so would clarify what happened and allow the public to assess the legality of the strike. Others within the administration caution that releasing sensitive operational footage could reveal tactics and capabilities that adversaries might exploit. For now, the decision remains under internal review. The political landscape surrounding the issue is far from settled. Some lawmakers are demanding more oversight, potentially including a formal vote to restrict unauthorized military actions in Venezuela. Others maintain that existing authorities are sufficient and that the president must be able to act swiftly against transnational threats. The result is an atmosphere of uncertainty, with competing interpretations of law, competing assessments of risk, and competing visions for America's role in the hemisphere. Through it all, President Trump continues to apply pressure on Caracas while keeping his public statements intentionally unpredictable. His message remains that Maduro's hold on power is weakening and that the United States will not shy away from escalating measures if necessary. But whether the strategy remains limited to maritime operations or expands into something broader will depend on decisions that Washington has yet to make, and on the continued debate over where the line between law enforcement and warfare truly lies.